Question, man. Do you want to respond to some of the points? Because I think
Yeah.
Diego specifically mentioned your name, so go ahead.
Yeah, again, that's just added a lot of stuff. Again, he's trying to pick and choose the beginning. Jesus tells you, you have been with me from the beginning, what I have told you from the beginning. So he's assuming that John, in one paragraph, is saying that Jesus is back there. It doesn't say Jesus, okay? John would have been very clear. In the beginning was God the Son, and God the Son was with the Father. Done. He doesn't say that. He says, in the beginning was the Word. John does not say in the beginning was God the Son or anybody. And Jesus himself tells you the logos, which is the bidbar in the Hebrew, is not my words to speak. So if he wants to say that God created everything, let there be light, well, Jesus tells you when he quotes from the Old Testament, these are not my words to speak. The Father has given me a commandment of what to say and what to speak. So, people are just trying to assume things and they pick and choose. And they go to, Matthew talks about the beginning of Christ. Mark talks about the beginning of the gospel. Mark talks about the beginning of the ministry when Jesus is baptized. They don't keep reading down to John. Okay, John also talks about in the same opening chapter, the beginning of the ministry when Jesus is anointed. And John 1:15 in the Geneva Bible says, he who comes after me was before me, for he was greater than I. Okay, before me means chief. What they do is, if you look at later translations, they'll change it to he existed before me. It doesn't say that. Okay, in the Geneva, it says, he who comes after me was before me, for he was greater than I. He is before, because it tells you that somebody will be coming whose sandals he's not worthy to tie, somebody far greater than John, not that somebody who existed before John. Okay, so this is just a deliberate manipulation of the scriptures, right? So when we go from the beginning, the same author, when Diego uses the beginning of, yes, exactly, the beginning of Satan's life, right? John never talks about the Old Testament beginning as far as the creation of time. Never once from the beginning of time ever. So the immediate context here, it's unreasonable and exegetically a failure to interpret the beginning of John 1 as describing the Genesis creation. It's, if you look at John 1, it's echoing Genesis because it's the beginning of the new creation of God through the life and the ministry of the Messiah. That's what it talks about in John 1, that which was from the beginning, which we have heard and touched. In the first century, the word logos of life. In John 1, the same words which occur in the Gospel of John, the beginning, refer to the life and the ministry of Jesus, the Messiah on earth, not to the beginning of the creation. And so if you look at the epistle of John 1:3, it's a commentary or explanation of the Gospel of John 1. The beginning that John describes in this epistle here is the same exact beginning he describes in his Gospel. It's the beginning which John, in the first century, others had experienced, which they had heard, which they had seen, which they had touched, the human Christ resurrected from the dead. And so if you look at 1 John 1:2, the beginning occurs 5 times in 1 John 2, like 2:7, 1:13, and I think 24. And none of these occurrences does the beginning refer to the Genesis creation. Not a single one. Look at John 2:7, for example. Beloved, I am writing to you no new commandment, but an old commandment that you had from the beginning. The old commandment is the word which you have heard. 1 John 3:11. For this is the message in arche, which you have, or this is the message, the word, which you have heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. And so there's only 2 exceptions, like Diego said, but none of these refer to God in his eternity past. The devil sinning and murdering relate to his own beginning. So 2 John the beginning doesn't mean the creation. And now I beg you, lady, not as though I were writing you a new commandment, but the one you have heard from the beginning, that we love one another. So basically, to summarize this, you just, what Trinitarians will do is they'll go to riddles and hints and clues. It does not say in the beginning was God the Son. And they skip the beginning of the life and the ministry of Jesus, the beginning of the word. John shows up in the beginning. They make excuses for it.
I think he was pointing out that this describes, or is supposed to describe, what it means for Jesus to be the Word and to be in the beginning. He's connecting it, if I remember correctly, he's connecting it to John 1 and what is supposed to be understood by John saying Jesus is the Word and in the
Yeah.
beginning, etc.
I was on mute, sorry. Can I read it really quick from the RSV?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, it says right here, it says, you know the word. Okay, so we have the word. You know the word which he sent to Israel. Jesus said, I have been sent to the lost sheep of Israel, preaching good news of peace by Jesus Christ. He's Lord of all. The word which was proclaimed throughout Judea, beginning from Galilee, after the baptism which John preached, how God anointed Jesus of Nazareth with the Holy Spirit and with power, how he went about, the word became flesh and dwelt among us, how he went about doing good and healing all who were oppressed for the devil, for God was with him, and the word was with God. God was with him, the word was with God. Jesus goes about, the word became flesh and dwelt among us. And it tells you when the word began, beginning from Galilee after the baptism. That's why John shows up in verse 6. There was a man sent from God. His name was John in the beginning. So we have the beginning, we have the word, and we're told when it began after the baptism, which John preached. Thanks.